Have you ever looked at someone under immense pressure and wondered how they stay so clear, so decisive, while other people who are just as smart, just seem to fragment? It's not about willpower. It's about an invisible architecture. And today, we're going to deconstruct it. This right here, this is the core idea. There's a mechanism running under the surface, an internal processing speed that determines your stability. See, it's not about gritting your teeth and controlling your emotions. It's about the efficiency of a feedback loop that most of us don't even realize is running in the first place. And look, this isn't something that only happens in one specific job or industry. We see the exact same pattern, the same pressure dynamics, playing out across totally different high-stakes environments. It's a universal force, and it operates just beneath our awareness. Let's take an emergency physician. They're flooded with data. Every decision is high stakes. If they fail to notice their own cognitive load building up, if they miss that crucial internal signal, it can lead directly to a critical diagnostic error. The problem isn't the external pressure itself. It's the breakdown of an internal process. Or think about the startup founder. They live in a world of relentless uncertainty. Now, without a system to process all that chaos, they get forced into a reactive mode. They start making decisions based on the latest fire that needs putting out, not on a coherent strategy. And the result? A downward spiral of inefficiency and exhaustion. Now, this is where the stakes get really high. For an air traffic controller who's managing dozens of aircraft, a tiny momentary lapse, a small hiccup in their internal loop, doesn't just affect them. It introduces risk into the entire system they're responsible for. Okay, so we've seen the pattern. Now let's move from just observing it to actually deconstructing it. We're going to analyze the underlying architecture here, what we call the personal stress operating system. This is probably the most important shift in thinking we have to make. This isn't a wellness philosophy, it's an engineering model. Your ability to handle stress is really a function of a closed feedback loop that processes pressure almost exactly like a computer's operating system manages processing demands. And that loop has three critical stages. First up is awareness, simply detecting the friction, noticing that you're running at 80% capacity, not 40%. Second is regulation, taking a specific action to adjust your state, or, and this is key, adjusting the inputs you're receiving. And third, there's alignment, making sure your next actions are aimed squarely at your most important priorities. So what happens when this loop breaks? Well, the failure modes are predictable. If you have awareness but no regulation, you get rumination. You just replay problems in your head over and over without doing anything. If you have regulation but no alignment, you get inefficiency. You're busy, you're doing stuff, but it's not the right stuff. And the most dangerous one for high performers, alignment without awareness. That leads to blind overcommitment, which is just another name for the fast track to burnout. And this is a really key insight for that regulation stage. You cannot just will your nervous system to be calm. It doesn't work that way. Its output, that tension, that fatigue, that feeling of being on high alert, is a direct result of its inputs. If you don't control the upstream variables, like your notifications, back-to-back meetings, and sensory overload, any attempt at downstream regulation is going to fail. So what's the actual price? What happens when this internal loop runs too slowly or just breaks down altogether? The consequences are huge, and they're often completely misunderstood. This is the real cost. Let's be really clear. Burnout is not a sudden event. It's a systems failure. It is the slow, silent accumulation of unresolved demands, thousands of tiny incomplete loops, little misalignments that stack up day after day, week after week, until the whole structure just gives way. Think about it this way. For the vast majority of high performers, let's say 90%, collapse isn't about weakness. It's not a moral feeling. It's the result of an invisible gap between the load they perceive they're carrying and the actual processing capacity of their internal system. They're redlining the engine without ever seeing the gauge. So this brings us to the edge, that small but absolutely critical difference in the mental models of people who actually thrive under pressure. And it's not about what they do, it's about how they think about the pressure itself. The big shift is moving from relying on motivation to building a system. See, motivation is fragile. It goes up and down with your mood, your energy levels. A system, on the other hand, provides behavioral continuity. It works whether you feel like it or not, which is precisely when you need it the most. So, the true measure of resilience is not your grit, It is not your willpower. It is the speed and the efficiency of your internal feedback loop, the pace at which you can complete that awareness, regulation, alignment cycle. That is the real indicator of your capacity to handle sustained pressure. All right, with this entire framework in mind, it's time for a quick internal audit. I have 3 direct and maybe slightly confronting questions to help you assess the state of your own operating system. First one, what triggers you most? And be specific here. What people, what situations, what kind of information consistently creates the most cognitive friction and threatens to send your system into overload? Second question, what resets you fastest? This is about identifying your most effective regulation tools. What action, what environment, or what period of quiet brings your system back to baseline most efficiently? What closes the loop for you? And finally, what routines protect your energy? Now, this isn't about motivation. This is about structure. What systems or defaults have you already built into your life, consciously or unconsciously, that preserve your cognitive bandwidth and prevent you from having to make hard decisions when you're already under pressure?